Everyone.
Great. Well, I guess it's 5:32 and I guess if everybody's probably should get started. So
Let me share my screen.
Great.
Okay. There we go.
okay, so it's a 5:31, I guess. And is there any public comment? Okay, guess not. So guess we can move on to the September 23 minutes.
Okay.
This is Reed. I do have a question.
Okay,
Right there, the end of that paragraph where it says Melinda stated the estimate, that estimate of 100,000, was that both the driveway and the track usage, or is that?
That was for everything that we wanted to apply for in the grant. So the trail access, the access trail and the trail counters and the signage.
Good, thank you.
okay, so I guess we need a motion to accept the unless anybody has corrections.
Also move.
I'll second. Jeff here.
Okay, so I guess the minutes are accepted. So I guess
To vote.
We need to
move
vote
on.
on it.
That's right. I'm sorry. Thank you. So, still getting used to this. So everyone that is in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And anyone abstaining? I think everybody was there. Okay, so minutes are passed.
Okay.
Okay, so now I guess we can move on to the operating budget. So I'll let Melinda take over for this part.
Yeah, so I took last year's operating budget, which was proposed, well, which was $2,000. And the categories of expenditures that have been proposed. And then I'm not assuming that it's remaining at 2,000. And I do have, like I put in 500 for brush hogging and $500 for invasive species management. That's, of course, up for debate. And then I had no idea about EAB management and treatment, nor miscellaneous expenses, printing maps and signage and educational outreach. Or if there were any other categories within the operating budget that you wanted to consider funding. So with that, open it up for discussion.
And so Melinda, Jeff here, this is the operating budget. Will there be a separate capital budget at some point?
Yeah, you already discussed that at the previous
Last
meeting.
meeting, yeah.
Yeah, I believe.
And what, I'm sorry, refresh my memory. Did we discuss what would be in that capital budget?
Yeah, so let me,
Yeah,
let's go
thank you.
back. Oh, sure, no problem. I can just bring up that meeting, which was, thought it was discussed last time.
And we very well may have. I have a short memory.
Sure, no problem. So Catamount. Yeah, so I don't believe we discussed actual numbers. There is an existing capital budget with numbers in it, which I mostly remember off the top of my head. But these are what's currently in that budget.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, and then the sheep barn maintenance is kind of a big question mark. That was the biggest question mark. And I guess maybe a question for you all would be, would it be worth spending some money on doing having a more detailed assessment done for the sheep barn? I'm not sure whether that belongs in the operating budget or the capital budget. No, capital budget.
I believe it would be more of a capital budget item.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is Reed. Do we feel that that last report didn't have enough depth to it? For an assessment? Because
Yeah.
I was a member, but you hired somebody to do an assessment. I have read it, but a while back, but
I don't think it provides sufficient detail to be able to make decisions on what to spend money on. And,
Okay.
and I think it might be useful to have an assessment done that's more of that goes into sort of more of an alternatives analysis, like, is it worth preserving this building as a functional building, to actually, serve a higher function than it does now. And I think that would bear some additional study just to determine the costs in greater detail and the permitting requirements.
sure. Okay.
Also
All right.
add costs, but I
I
guess
thought that might might be a good winter time topic to
Perhaps.
research. Yeah, do look into that this winter and maybe get
Yeah.
a second quote, second opinion on the barn itself. I know that Catamount Outdoor Family Center, that's pretty key to their operations to have that for storage. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there may be an opportunity to, if we were going to do a more detailed assessment, to apply for a grant, because Williston is a certified local government that provides some access into competitive grant funds that might be able to fund or help fund, fund roughly 60% of the costs of a more detailed assessment, which will cost a lot more than the $500 that the last one did. I mean,
Okay, sure.
I could sort of see that it would cost more along the lines of, I don't know, I'm sort of guessing, but maybe $10,000 or $12,000 to really kind of delve into it and get an assessment that goes into a lot more detail. But that's sort of, it's digressing a little bit, but anyway, this is just to refresh your memory. And I can't remember. Of course, we just read the minutes, but I think the last time I thought there was some discussion about this and that it might be worth looking into. So,
I think maybe this way, next meeting or the one after,
yeah,
put it on there to really reread that assessment and maybe look into, the funding, the Vermont barn grant program.
I would agree. The thing I would point out is we don't have a lot of time if we want to include it in next year's capital budget, because that process is well underway right now. And that window will close sometime in the near future. And because it, then has to go to this select board and maybe even the planning commission for review. All of which takes time. The other thing I wanted, the first thing these are just my thoughts. First thing is I don't remember what the report said itself. We should take a look at it and see if there's a dire need to do something quickly or not. If the answer is no, the good news there is at least we have some time. And then to me, the next question is, I'm going to use the word we. I don't know who exactly we means, but what is it we feel is the best option? And by that, I mean, is it to keep that building? We may have to keep it. It may be a historic structure we have no choice but to keep. But we need to answer those questions. Do we have to keep it? And if the answer is yes, then that kind of answers that. And then the answer is no, it becomes, well, what is the best option for providing the services we need? Whatever it is needs to be stored or, kept out of the weather or that, that type of thing. And it may be that building is the best building. It may be that a different structure makes a lot more sense and is cheaper to maintain. I also kind of wonder, did our agreement with the McCulloughs include anything about the sheep barn? I could see where I could see where they could be kind of, they might have an opinion about whether the town should tear it down, let's say, or not.
I think I've established through the state SHPO office that we can't just tear it down.
Okay.
We have to keep it.
All right. I apologize that I didn't remember that.
And I think we authorized $1,000 to just cable it, didn't we? Is that
right? Correct. So the report does say that if it's going to be several years before we get around to doing any maintenance on the building, we should at least stabilize it, and that would cost about $1,000 to just run some steel cable, sort of pulling the sides of the building together and holding it together.
Okay.
And is
So,
that actually happening?
it will. I haven't gotten around to contacting the guy
okay.
about it, but it will.
No problem.
And
Yeah.
Is that an operating budget item for next year
Yes.
or is it
For this year.
for this year? Okay, all right. So we don't want to line
Mhm.
item it in to get back to where we were
Yeah.
about operating budgets. We don't want to
Mm-hmm.
line item it for next year then.
Yeah.
No, but can we go back to the operating budget? Because I don't remember seeing it under this year, fiscal year 22.
It's not, but I think I believe you discussed it last time, and since we're not posting land or marking boundaries because that was done by our trail steward, so we don't have to spend that money. I don't believe we're doing any EAB management or treatment. At least we haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was put in there sort of as a, what if there were some trees that we wanted to treat? And I don't think those were ever identified. So,
Okay. Melinda, would you do me a favor? Sorry about this. Would you check with Eric what it is we have to do, if anything? The answer may be nothing. If we want to move money from posting land, marking boundaries, and EAB management to sheep building stabilization.
yeah. So
Sheep-
I can
sheep
answer that
barns.
for you.
Okay, great.
Because they didn't divide the operating budget up into categories the way it's done
Okay.
here. They just said
Yeah.
$2,000 Catamount
Okay.
Community Forest, spend it any way
Okay.
you like. So that
Okay.
makes it
All right.
easy. I think
Okay, good.
this is sort of for your tracking purposes so that, you can sort of decide how much money you think is needed and what you want to spend it on.
Yeah.
I guess there is one tree that's out for the EAB, out on the night loop that was identified by Jim McCullough, and I think Laura might have gone out there. And it's a large ash tree that's pretty significant, and so there was some thought about maybe treating that tree, just because it probably would be a safety hazard. Get the EAB. It's right there on that nighttime skiing loop. And then there were a couple nearby. So.
And is that tree something that you want to do this year, that you want to see treated?
So we have till July, right? July.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, because it is, I talked to Ethan about EAB and he said, well, it's in Richmond. Theoretically, it's here. It's in Williston. So we might want to think about that as opposed to a cost of, taking it down. So, I could get back to Ethan, but, well, not Ethan, actually. There's a couple of folks that are in the area that are pretty reasonably priced to treat the trees with the treatment. So I can reach out to those folks and get an estimate, I guess, and see what it would cost, but definitely. But those really, I think that's the only ash trees. There's not much on Catamount. Ethan said it's pretty sparse in ash, but just that one little clump of area, there's several of them. Plus the big one.
And I think, Terry, I was some conversation I had, I can't remember where it was. The treatment isn't a one-time deal. It basically has to happen every year. So it would become an annual line item in the budget.
Every 2 to 3
Is it?
is
Okay.
pretty much what they recommend. Like every 2 years. And if you compare the price of taking it down, this is a pretty big tree. It's pretty huge. So it would probably, sometimes it's more to actually take the tree out than it is to actually treat it and to save it. So, but I can get a cost, I can get a quote on what it would be to treat this large tree.
Okay. So let's make sure we include that in next year's operating budget.
Mhm.
And I would at this point say, let's continue with the 400.
Mhm.
And maybe if we don't use it, we don't use it. That's usually seen as a good thing, not a bad thing. And if we need it, we need it.
And do we know, like for the invasive species, do we know if Laura has incurred any costs from that?
As far as I know, no, unless,
Yeah.
well, except for whatever the cost, the
Yeah.
very minor amount of glyphosate that she's using. But I don't think that's going to be a major cost. I can ask.
Okay, because most of it's
Yeah.
been volunteer work, so.
It's all been, except for the work that is being done under, Partners for Fish and Wildlife, and that's done under a grant. So it's not costing the town anything.
And that was completely covered, right? That cost?
Yeah, as far as I know. Yep.
Okay.
Melinda, is that the work that when I did a walk around with Ethan and there was a whole bunch of stuff out there. He's like saying, yeah, we need to have someone come in and commercially deal with this. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I know that Ethan has looked at the invasives all over the property and has, been urging us to do something about the invasives all over the place. But
Yeah.
for as far as what's being treated now, it's in his plot where they took out a whole bunch of buckthorn, they cut it
Yep.
down.
Yep.
And now they're going back and they're doing a foliar treatment. I think it came back quicker than they thought it would. So that treatment is not costing us
Okay.
anything.
Because I do think there were
Is-
some other pieces of Japanese barberry and some other places that when we walked around, and I think we had a report, I think last meeting or the meeting before that really identified what some of those things were.
Yeah.
And so looking at, even though the volunteer stuff may not be a big cost, that other piece, there's some cost involved with that. So I guess I'm looking at $500 for next year and thinking that
Mhm.
I don't have a clue how much that would cost, but that's probably a reasonable figure to start with.
Do you think it's worth spending the $300 by next July to do some invasive treatment? Is that something you want to do before the next fiscal year?
I think Ethan would appreciate it if we did. Because he really, he pretty much thinks that this is
Mhm.
coming back so much quicker than he thought.
Yeah.
Even though the Fish and Wildlife's going to do this first treatment, he just was amazed. I don't know if
Mhm.
Pat, that's what the walk that you went with him, if that was the same thing, but he just couldn't believe how quick it was coming back.
Yeah, I don't think we went to the patches that he had been doing some work on. We actually walked through a couple different other parcels of the forest. So I think it's a whole different set of stuff that when we walked through that he identified.
I wonder if it would be worth taking a walk with Ethan and the contractor that's doing the work out there now. It's Rob Hyams from Heinsberg, and just getting Rob maybe to, I don't know, just to tell us what could we treat with $500. Maybe it's not nearly enough. I don't know.
Mhm.
But might be worth it to get some idea of how far that will go, or what's a realistic amount of money to spend on treating invasives.
Yeah, I think that would be worth it. Would you be willing to go, Pat, and take a little field trip, or anybody else on the commission?
Yeah, if I've got the open time on my schedule, if they're out there walking around, I'd be happy to do that.
I mean, I could also arrange a time to meet out there with them too.
Sure, I would, if I'm available, I would come
Mhm.
along.
Yeah, I would too.
Me too.
Okay,
On the
cool.
next month's meeting.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's gonna get dark very
It's
soon,
Right.
but anyway.
Hey,
um,
Melinda, tons. I don't know if I can comment, but I went with Pat and Ethan on that walk. I mean, there's a ton.
Yep.
And when you say
Yeah.
$500, I mean, I was getting the feeling like $10,000 would begin to make a dent on the stuff we were looking at with the Barbary and all this other stuff. So
Yeah,
to get an estimate from somebody would be good, but
Mm.
500 feels like we barely make a dent.
well, you could be right about that, and yeah.
So Laura is having an invasive day tomorrow, Saturday from 9 to 11. So she might have some more information on, I don't know if she's gotten into that aspect of treating or just the buckthorn blaster, but she might have some information.
Yeah, she actually wrote up a report after that time that Hans, I forgot you were out in that group that when we walked around with Ethan. So I read it, but I can't remember what was in it. But we walked a couple parcels and she wrote up a report about that.
Yeah.
I just don't remember what it said.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe that she, at this point, feels comfortable with using a buckthorn blaster, but probably not the foliar spray,
Right.
is my impression anyway. But at any rate, I can reach out to Ethan and just maybe figure out a time to go out with him and take a site walk, and I'll let you all know when that is.
Okay.
I know Ethan's pretty busy right now, so we'll see.
So I'm looking at the other budget things. So posting land and marking boundaries, we didn't spend anything this year.
So we have now a trail steward, a part-time position, summertime position, and she marked all the boundaries, or she posted all the boundaries.
Okay.
So that's now being done by staff. So we don't have to
that.
include it in the budget because it's just, yeah.
Was the Catamount fairly easy or was it pretty challenging? Some of the places she said was pretty tough.
What she said about Catamount, I mean, some of it was really hard because of the terrain, but a lot of it was pretty straightforward because it followed along stone walls, and it was marked. The first year I had Trudell mark the boundaries with a with a stencil and paint, and I think they marked and they posted pretty thoroughly, probably put up way more signs than they needed to, but at least it's very clear. So she did say she found some things out there. I've got to get her to send me some photos. She found an old cistern and just some interesting historic features out there. So I'll see if I can get a hold of those photos.
Is she still working now or is her?
No,
position
she's done. She's done for the year. Mhm.
Yeah, we should definitely keep track of those whatever features, where they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So sounds like, all right, so invasives and EAB management treatment, sounds like that's still of some interest to fund some money towards that. So let's see.
And you were saying probably it's going to be more than 2,000 for 23.
Well, I mean, it's sort of, you can propose anything
Right.
Right.
within reason.
The select board may or may not agree.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's sort of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so right, you can ask for as much as you want, but you're not.
Yeah.
gonna get- yeah.
And then the other piece of this will also be reviewed by Eric, the town manager, before
Yeah.
it goes to the select board, and he may or may not agree.
Hmm.
He'll put Melinda to task over why.
Yeah. Like
So are we assuming that the boundary, marking boundaries is going to be no cost from here out to the committee or to the, we won't have to have that every year?
as long as we have a trail steward, they should be able to do it.
Okay,
So, yeah. So there's an, if you stuck with like $2,000 for an overall budget, there'd be $650 that could be spent elsewhere.
mhm.
Yeah.
So I guess I would put in, just to throw a figure for the EAB, just put in $500. Just
Mhm.
to see what, and I'll find out, I'll get a quote from the Chris Dulmer from Milton. He's-
All right.
Could we take the 650 out of land posting and add it to that? So if we think that it's significant, at least from a budget perspective,
True, yeah, I guess.
because if you're gonna, you already had 400 under EAB this year, so if you take that together, basically you got $1,000 you could put in for next year.
So are we, Melinda, are we assuming since they approved $2,000 for this 22, that if we ask for 2023, that probably would be
It-
apply?
Jeff is sort of shaking.
Yeah.
The answer is $2,000. I mean, compared to some of the budgets we see, like from the police department or the fire department or public works, is I'm going to use the word minuscule. I don't mean that, what we do is minuscule. It just is.
Mhm.
So $2,000, if we stick with $2,000, that certainly, I think, is going to appear reasonable. Yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, but I can't guarantee, we don't, who knows what the budget is, what the budget review is going to feel like when it actually is happening. All indications are that, we're not yet facing an economic downturn. So there isn't going to be much pressure on the select board to reduce the budget. Again, $2,000 isn't a big place to reduce the budget when it's, over an $11 million overall operating budget. Not operating town budget. But still, everything would be looked at if the select board was feeling pressure to reduce the budget.
I have a suggestion about this because there's uncertainty about invasive species management versus EAB management. Could they be lumped together under sort of a general forest management? And then just in parentheses, EAB invasives, whatever, just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And just put it in as $1,000 for invasives, and because
Sure.
EAB is invasives, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then maybe put, I mean, I know we just had budgeted 150 for the miscellaneous, but if we put in 500 for miscellaneous, I would definitely want to see, some money spent towards educational outreach, and we've been lucky to have Ethan for free, as the county forester, but it would be nice to get some folks in there to do some educational things that, that we would have to pay for to come out. Can anyone think of another line item?
But two things I'm curious about. Melinda, I know I've asked these before, so I apologize for being repetitive. Do we need to account for any of your time in our budget?
Nope, I'm free.
Good news. Thank you. Second question is do, I know the parking lot needs to be plowed in the
Mhm.
winter. Does the Public Works Department build that into their budget?
The outdoor center is responsible for plowing under the license
Okay.
agreement.
Oop. So, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Sorry, Kim and Hans, I didn't realize that.
And I think that's actually probably good because I don't think it's going to be a high priority for Public Works. So it could
Yes.
cause some conflict if it's
Yeah.
not done in a timely manner.
Actually, that makes total sense. Yep. Okay. All right, good. Hey,
Just got
everyone.
kicked off of the internet, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
back. I
And
missed, what was that? So what
We're
was
just-
that you were talking about, Jeff?
Whether plowing needed to be included in our budget.
Okay.
And the answer is no, because the Outdoor Family Center is responsible for plowing. And then Melinda was also pointing out that's probably a good thing, and I agree, is because the Catamount family, the parking lot may not be a high priority after a snowstorm because Public Works is busy doing everything else it has to do. So it might be a while before they could get the parking lot plowed, which would conflict with everybody who's like, I want to be there because we got fresh snow.
Mhm.
True.
Hey, everyone, I'll be right back. I just got to pop away for a minute to put something in the oven.
Great, okay. So I guess I was kind of proposing to, Linda, you said put the invasives and the EAB together, make that $1,000 and then put in 500. Oh, no, so what would that be? It would
You
be
could make 1,500 out of that.
1,500 and to make, to just do a $2,000 again for the 23 budget.
Okay, so if you put 1,500 under forest management, and then you have the $500 for brush hogging, that's
Yeah.
2,000.
Oh,
And then you
2,000.
wanted, you wanted some for educational outreach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So 1,000 for forest management and 500 for education.
I mean, you could always ask for 2,500 if you wanted to.
Right, so
Yeah.
why, that
Yeah.
might be,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
work. And if we had to reshuffle, then we could.
Uh-huh.
And I don't see $500 increase is going to be a big deal.
Mhm.
I think 2,500 to basically run Catamount with the understanding that, our end of running Catamount, there's a, Catamount Family Outdoor Center, there's their end of running Catamount, which has a huge expense with it, is very reasonable.
Mhm. Okay. So, yeah, so 2,500. All right.
Great. So I guess, is there any more discussion about, we're right at almost on schedule, 6:10. Is there any more discussion on the operating budget? I guess not. So I guess.
Yeah,
do we
good
have-
job. Thank
do we have
you.
to-
I'm good with, yep.
Do we have
All
to
right.
vote on it or anything, or?
You can if you want.
I don't, yeah, good question.
I don't think
Um,
you have to, but you can if you want.
Yeah, yeah. Usually the way it works with the other departments is the department heads put together the budget.
Mhm.
And so I'm, because it's a recommended budget, I'm not really sure. Good question. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I think this may be the only committee now that has its own budget, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
The Conservation Commission must.
Well, they do, except for, well, they did, but now it's been lumped under planning. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we have concurrence no matter what.
okay. I can just write in the minutes, the committee agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're right on schedule, so Is there, so we're all set on the operating budget. So the
Yeah,
next,
could we schedule for next meeting a discussion of the capital budget?
Oh, okay. I thought, yeah, sure.
Be-
I mean, to add in something with the barn?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Yep. And also, I think typically the capital budget is a 5-year projection.
Mhm.
And it may not, we may not be able to get there this time, but we ought to start to think about, our capital budget being a 5-year plan.
Mhm.
Um, and it gives us the ability to kind of look ahead at, what it is we think needs to be done. And of course, that will go through both Eric and the select board too.
Okay.
yeah, I think it's not a bad idea to keep reviewing it, just to keep remembering what's involved in the capital
Well,
budget.
the other piece, Terry, is we got to start putting dollars to some of those items that are in it.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, when we developed the management plan for Catamount initially in 2018, I tried to put some numbers to those to different items, but it was really very rough estimates. So yeah, it would be good to get a little bit clearer on the budget, for sure.
Some of the items were the bridges that need to be replaced was
Yeah.
one big item.
Yeah.
Repair from a logging, which apparently is going to be put off for another couple of years, so that won't be happening. But
Mhm.
it will be within the 5-year period.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I can't think of, and the barn. So those are some of the ones. So
Mhm. Okay.
okay, great. So should we move on to this now? So I guess next up is Catamount Outdoor Family Center updates. So is Kim here?
I am here. I've
Um,
been here.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
gonna stop my share, yes.
Yeah, I will try to be as efficient as possible here, looking at the time, respecting everyone's time as well. So I've got some quick kind of brief updates. One is the snow school program, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. This is a partnership that we joined in with the Winter Wildlands Alliance out of Idaho to provide a K-12 science-based curriculum program for the schools. We received a grant this year through the Lake Champlain Basin Program, and part of that grant included purchasing about 90 snowshoes, 90 pairs of snowshoes to outfit kids, multiple classrooms of all sizes, as well as about $2,000 for us to get into classrooms expense paid. So we will be able to hit about 20 classrooms for free this winter. I'm scheduling them right now. It's really exciting. We have classrooms ranging from Grand Isle all the way down to Roxbury, everything from private schools, Waldorf schools, Catholic schools, public schools, special education classes. So we are super thrilled to be able to launch this program so that we have a bigger outreach. Part of our mission is environmental awareness, and this program very much ties in outdoor recreation through snowshoe exploration by exploring their local watershed and making connections to their local watershed, whether it be talking about animal and plant adaptations for the winter, let's talk about snowshoe hares and lynx or pine cones and such, or looking, building watershed models out of the snow, like, hey, this river flows into the Winooski River, which makes it out to Lake Champlain, or even with older groups getting into actual snow analysis of actual snow pits. So what that looks like. So what happens when our snow melts and goes back into the greater ecosystem. So this is our kind of launch year. We're super excited about it. And just wanted you guys to all be aware that that's a much bigger reach, to broaden that touch point to our community. So we'll keep you posted with pictures and stuff like that as it all happens.
Kim, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you need any match funds for that? Because maybe,
Not
no?
sure. Go ahead, Melinda.
Well, I'm just thinking, we have some, I mean, maybe some of the money in educational outreach could be used as match for this grant.
Sure.
If you, well, you probably already figured that out when you put in your application, whether you were gonna need match or whatever, but just, I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, no, there is. And I would love to, to have that discussion, especially if it's an option, because some of what, whether or not we're all aware of this, the schools are running into a lot of budget constraints and funding just because of COVID and just everything that we're all living through right now. So the schools that we have just jumped on this, and there is way more than we can do with the grant that we've received already. One thing that comes to mind that I really want to work into this, especially after this launch year, but if not currently, is looking for community sponsors, whether it be through a match for the grant or addition to that, whether it's parents or local businesses or anything like that want to sponsor a classroom. Exactly, right?
REI.
Sponsor a classroom type program where the classroom may not be able to afford that $200 or $300, but for a local business to be like, I'm going to sponsor my kid's classroom, or I want a classroom in my town sponsored. I think there's a lot of opportunity to get kids on snowshoes and have a connection to that world around them beyond the classroom space. And this allows us to offer programs both in the school, so putting our cars full of snowshoes and traveling over there, or having them come to Catamount. And so right now we've got a mix of that put together. So happy to talk more or go from there. Right off the bat, the Williston schools unfortunately have had a huge lag time in trying to communicate and organize their wishes. So Williston itself, when it comes to the public schools, could be a good target for some of those match dollars if there is a potential for outreach. So so that's our snow school.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
On that, we have hired a new operations and events coordinator who has a background with Vermont State Parks doing interpretive work through natural resources education and such. So she's also a skier and a snowshoer and a new to mountain biker and does everything outdoors. And so super excited to bring her on over the next few weeks and meld her into these programs as well.
What's her name?
Her name is Amanda Preston.
When did she start, or has she started?
She came in to watch one of the cyclocross races and meet some faces, but she'll officially start here end of next week, if not the first of the following week. And she's finishing up her current job right now with State Parks. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wildlife. So yeah, you guys will get a chance to meet her. We'll introduce her. Let's see, moving on to kind of carry on to the barn conversation a little bit. Right now, as you may or may not be aware, the power had gotten knocked out several weeks ago from one of those big windstorm events that we had. And Melinda and I have spoken about this already. We're trying to get the power reconnected. And right now it's just a matter of getting a contractor, electrician there to actually do so. So kind of hand in hand with that is the night lights at Catamount. If for those of you familiar, there's a lower loop and the upper loop. No. The upper loop is obliterated at when you hit the power line. So Velco's work definitely destroyed those. They are not operational. We are hoping that once we get power reconnected to the barn, that the lower loop will be operational. But okay. It's unfortunately a loss that we're looking at, but from my view, and I'm happy to hear some feedback, I'm not really seeing a path forward to rectify that or change that in any way. So,
how did you lose power from Velco's work?
Just the destruction of the lines. They were I don't have any plans, like there aren't any plans out there, but how they were laid.
Yeah.
They made like
Yeah.
one of the farthest up power poles that they were working on. If you haven't been up there, I mean, it was a huge platform constructed, you know, a lot of earth moving there, that there was no way that those lines were going to make it through that type of earth moving project. So
So these were power lines that Catamount Family Outdoor Center owned, but they're under the Velcro right of way.
I guess, I mean,
Yeah.
they, to my knowledge, I mean, this predates me by maybe my age. And so I don't have any real background, you know, any background on when and how they were installed. I just know that they're not functional as of now. So I just wanted you guys to be aware.
My question was more along the lines of, it sounds like Velcro does not feel that it has any responsibility to restore those lines.
Correct. To my, that was my understanding of that. And I guess I'm just a little bit surprised from the standpoint, first of all, Velcro has more money than God. And second piece is, you know, they very much want to keep a positive image. And so I would think with that sort of background, they would be like, yeah, we'll fix it. We, you know, whether they have to or not, we broke it, we'll fix it. And I, you know, from my understanding is it comes down to permitting. A lot of those lines would go through wetland buffer zones, and that I think beyond the scope of where anyone wants to go with
say
that.
no more. Yeah, it might even get into like Act 250. Okay. Yep. Yep. All right.
So
Those are old Jim
letting you
McCullough lines. He probably ran when he felt like it many years ago.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to really touch that, and you know, we haven't officially announced anything on it. We're trying to figure that out. Like, what's the best way to do that? I don't necessarily want to get into permitting issues. So
no. It that opens up a whole bag of worms that would become probably very expensive. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Melinda and I and Hans did a site visit a few weeks ago at Catamount, and one of the things that came about from the Velcro work is it opened up a boundary corridor from the other side of Lookout to the horse farm, from the horse farm on the Catamount trails. So we identified exactly where that access is happening, and Grady and Keith are going to be. They've started cutting some rails already for a buck and rail fence that will be signed on either side to stop that access. So from the private landowner sign, it'll say, you know, you are entering Catamount Community Forest land, pedestrian, skiing and biking only. And then on the other side, we also want it signed so that users that come to the forest are aware that they shouldn't just hike down there, that's now private land. So that'll be put into play as well. Okay.
Good.
Last month we talked about the parking lot perimeter fence, and so we did create a really open-ended survey. For those of you who haven't seen it, I encourage you to check out the Catamount Community Forest Facebook page. There is a link. There's a QR code as well as an actual link. Basically, what we're looking for is to know how you use the trails and what's your feedback on this. So far, we've had no negative feedback on it. It has been all positive. There was one comment just about making sure that the aesthetics of the fence would be appeasing and fit in with Catamount. So our thoughts is keeping that open until the end of the month and seeing if anything else comes of that, and then going forward at that point.
Okay.
So Melinda posted that I put it on the Catamount Community Forest page, and so people have seen it. I don't know how many people have commented on it. And I was just telling Melinda that not everybody has code. reader,
Yeah,
so
yeah, so I went back in and I posted
Yeah.
a link for people.
thank you.
And I
Great.
also said, if you can also comment on the post itself, if you want to make some comments.
Okay.
So,
And I
Yeah.
know we talked about last time, and I emailed Melinda, I thought we had talked about having like options for the fence, like 2 or 3 different kind of styles or whatever, but it just seems like there's kind of one style that will work for this kind of fence.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, with the Land Water Conservation Fund restrictions of, the no earth moving, requiring anything that requires a hole in the ground to go through extensive permitting, the buck and rail fence, which is, for those of you not familiar with it, definitely check out the picture online, but it's very much what you would see used out west, from the Midwest on, a lot of type of like barrier fences for farm animals, very rustic feel that can be created, and built from fallen and dead trees that are right here on the forest. So not having to bring in a bunch of pressure treated wood or anything like that. And it doesn't require anything on the ground or any holes in the ground. In addition, we also considered, users of it, and thinking in the summer, you can lean your bike against it. In the winter, your skis can be leaned against it. You could drape your clothes over it. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a climbing gym, but it does have some usage. And then the idea with the current gate that's on Woods Trace. So Velco had the bigger, like 2 double wide gate installed for their equipment, is that gate would just be moved from that location into the buck and rail. And it's never going to get locked. It was only locked this summer for Velco's safety and to keep their equipment and work stuff more secure. There is no lock on it anymore, and that's how we'd like to keep it. But the gate would be there so that emergency vehicles or Ethan and his crew and anyone could easily get through and access the property as needed. It wouldn't be a double gate. We wouldn't have another one on Woods Trace itself.
Is that a mandatory, that's a right of way for Velco to get to their power?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I know, Jim, there was just comments about places to go walk and hike and things in town. And Catamount was left out, and he was just commenting that the trails there are handicap accessible. So that's a really something to think about, to make sure that, people with disabilities can still access, through this fence.
Well, I think like anyone, you still have to go around, but there's nothing, we don't have stairs or anything in the go around. And the accessible parking is going to be designated outside the hub where the barn is. So the accessible users would have that parking area, which would be right there at the hub, boom, right around. So that all fits in really nicely as well. Yeah, so we'll see, let people know that that's there. We do have a sign at the hub about the fence as well. But, like I said, so far it's generated very little feedback or comments on anyone's end, which is a good thing. Although, at the same time, it is what it is. So, and Terry, to your point of multiple fences, we did consider it, but with the restrictions of being able to dig a hole in the ground, there's very little that we can do beyond that. We would be looking at metal fencing, whether it be, like the galvanized metal we had last year, which is very kind of barrier. It's kind of obtrusive and ugly. And I would prefer not to have obtrusive and ugly fencing up there. And if we can do something that we don't have fix twice a year would be great. So,
are you thinking like November, you want to get that?
Yeah. Yeah, Grady's plan is to wait for any feedback to happen. And then once we're good to go, he and Keith will probably put together a pretty big volunteer effort. Grady's constructed one of these down in Stowe through Stowe Trails Partnership as well. And he said, once like he and Keith actually have the material right there, it should be a pretty quick and easy construction. So we'll put a push for volunteers out there at that point. So that it's good to go and make sure it's not in the way of any plowing or anything like that, of course. So, Yeah, I don't have a whole lot other beyond that. The only conversation I guess I would like, not necessarily to have, but just for thought purpose is thinking about like Catamount Outdoor Family Center's place on the Catamount Community Forest. I mean, we really think of everyone that visits that forest to be users of the Catamount Community Forest, you know, whether they're there participating in a paid program or they're there just walking on the trail for the beautiful views. Like, they're visitors of the forest. We, as the Catamount Outdoor Family Center, are responsible for maintaining the recreational resources and the trails and providing programming on the forest. But I do really want us to be considered partners in that. And I don't want there to be a sense of, you know, division between these people pay to bike or these people pay to ski, and then there's the rest of us that just want to walk. I think we really need to be a community going forward with maintaining the resources, because it really is a gem for Williston. It's a gem for the community. Just over the last month, I've actually had conversations with several community members that have been under the assumption over the last couple of years that their tax dollars are paying Catamount Outdoor Family Center to maintain this forest. And I'm like, no, they aren't. And I think that's a big misconception out there. I don't think Williston and Catamount are unique in that aspect. I think that happens in a lot of places with town forests, but it is something that creates a little sense of, well, who's what? And, you know, really for us, it doesn't matter if it's a family paying for their kid to participate in mountain bike camp, or if it's someone to come out and rent skis, or it's someone to go out at 6 a.m. and watch birds, or take their wedding photos up at the top of Goose Hill on the sunset. Like, all of those people are the same, and they're just as important no matter what we're doing. And I just want you guys to know that, like, all of you, like the entire community, is so critical in maintaining that resource. And, you know, as we look to broaden our program base and our community outreach through some of this environmental education and awareness, when we put out a community survey last year, one of the biggest things that came back was that the community wants more beginner and novice level programming coming in there. Like, get us into outdoor recreation, get us into hiking, get us into skiing, biking, whatever it is, and more community events. So one that I propose, just to put your thinking caps on now, Melinda, you might remember pre-COVID, we were talking about the National Trails Day, which is the first Saturday of every June. And I think that would be an amazing kickoff annual event at Catamount to get people excited for what goes on at the forest, involve multiple different organizations in town, serve as educational outreach for people like Ethan or the Vermont Naturalists, your own committee, for instance, so that the community becomes aware of your decision making and how that affects the forest resources as well. So I don't know, just some thought to just bring everything full circle and realize that we really are one group. We are multiple groups benefiting from one resource. And the more we pull together in managing that resource, the better it's going to be for everyone.
I think the snowshoe project that you're doing is great. I think that will, you know, reach a lot of families and things, and, you know, introduce a lot of folks to the Catamount outdoor, you know, to the forest.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Right. Last year, right, in February, you did something with the Parks and Rec.
Yep.
For, you know, winter sports. Maybe we could do 2 things this winter, perhaps earlier in the season as well.
Yeah, I think at one point we had talked about doing one in the winter and one in the summer. So, yep. And then with Danielle at the library, our story time stuff. So just the more we can do, would just the better for everyone.
Great. And I'm trying to still connect with Ethan to try to do something in November, to have some kind of a walk out there to get folks there.
Mhm.
And I know in the spring, the Audubon does a huge, this past year, it brought like 30 people to Catamount to go
Yeah.
birding.
Terry, I think you could, if you wanted to, get that onto the Parks and Rec
Oh,
website.
okay. Yeah, sure.
That's something that can be posted, even if it's not, a direct Parks and Rec activity.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's
so
there's a whole bunch of Williston community members that receive the emails or other ways to get the information.
Mhm.
And that's also something like with our events page, Terry, if you guys are doing even the invasive species walk, send me like the quick description, like the 2-3 sentence that I can put out there with the time, the meeting place, any pertinent information. And I am happy to put that on our events page, no matter how far advanced it is. I mean, if it's scheduled, let's get it on there so people are aware, and we can easily share that through our channels as well.
Oh, great. Okay, and that
Yeah,
is a good
please.
segue here to the invasives. Laura's going to do that this weekend, and she thinks that there's going to be a handful of Boy Scouts, so she didn't really want to put it out on Front Porch Forum or really a big notice, because she's not quite comfortable yet with too many people out there with the
Mhm.
Yeah, fair
keeping track
enough.
of everybody.
Yeah.
So maybe the next time.
Yeah, no, I mean, and use your filter and your discretion on that.
Yeah.
So
But
Phil,
it's there, it's a resource, and
Yeah,
it only
yeah.
benefits the forest. So don't think of us as strangers in that aspect.
great. Okay, I'll leave that
I
to
mean, I know
Laura's.
a lot of the people that are following us, whether it's on our website, our newsletter, or social media, are also very much concerned about forest health and what's happening there, what's going on with management practices. Like, the mountain bikers, the skiers, they all want to know what's going on. So the more we can be inclusive about that and let people know and let everyone know, the better off.
Good. And I think, so she'll do, she gets more comfortable with it and getting bigger groups, she'll put the word out, but she's still committed to really working on the buckthorn or the invasive issue at Catamount and all around town. So we're pretty lucky that she's still willing to do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. All right. So we're at 6:30. We've talked about, the fence and the updates, invasives. So do we have a date for next month?
So the second Thursday is Veterans Day, which is a holiday. I won't be working that day. So I don't know, do folks feel okay about switching it to the 18th for next month?
Yeah, that's no problem. It's right before, for me,
Does that
right
work?
before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
How do other folks feel about that?
Fine with me.
Good. Okay, looks like we've got a thumbs up for most everyone, so that sounds good. And I guess tentatively, I mean, we'll talk about, but Jeff said he'd like to talk about the capital budget, so
Mhm.
definitely have that on there. So
Okay.
great. All right, so it's sick. We're 10 minutes over, so not too bad, not better than last time. So is there anything else folks want to chat about? Okay, doesn't look like it. So that said, we'll end the meeting at 6:40 and you on the 18th.
All right. Bye now.
All right.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm